Hi, I'm Rhonda.
I'm Angie.
And we are Adventures in Nomadness. Today we're going to talk about what we love, what we maybe don't like a lot, and what's gone right or wrong with our Escape 21.
All right, some of the top questions we get are, what are we glad we had Escape do right up front as far as modifications when we ordered it, and what would we do differently if we had to do it all over again?
We're also going to answer the question, have we had any major issues with our new Escape, and were there any tweaks that we had to fix when we first took delivery? Our first question is, what are we glad we had modified when we ordered our Escape? And one of the things is we left the shelf off that goes across here, and we didn't get the window. If there was a shelf here, I'd be bonking my head right now. So we're really glad. And look, you can put in a beautiful graphic. So the reason we don't want a window here is because it's non-thermal. And that means that you potentially get quite a bit more cold and moisture.
One of the things we did add was the window here, and we're really glad we did, especially because we don't have the window above the bed. This does give us a little bit extra light, plus a little extra airflow. Every little bit helps. So we're kind of talking about what we're glad that Escape added, or really what they didn't add for us, and why we like it that way. We didn't want the option of having the oven, so we didn't add the oven. We went with the microwave instead. Now it really depends on what kind of cooking you do normally at your home, is really what kind of cooking you're going to do in the RV. At our old condo, we really didn't use the oven that much, so we, for full timing, really wanted more of the storage. And for the most part, I don't miss an oven. I've learned to do some cast iron cooking, baking over our grill or over a fire, which is great. We've been in our off-grid cabin since November, and we did have an oven installed, and I have to admit, it's been kind of a nice, fun thing to have. But after that initial honeymoon phase, I haven't really used it a lot, and probably the last month. So when we move back here in the RV at the end of this month, I'm really not going to miss an oven. And I'm going to probably get an Omnia, so we have some capabilities for a couple things on the stovetop here.
Another thing that we were absolutely thrilled we got was the inverter that is wired to all of our outlets, and the extra outlets that we put in. So what I would say about that is, when you need to plug something in, you don't want to have to run an extension cord to an outlet just because you're boondocking. And we absolutely love it, and if we did it over again, we'd probably have even more outlets. So we thought we had a lot, and I would say you can't have too many.
Well, we're extremely happy we got two solar panels on the roof right from the start. And it's a little bit harder to add that later on. You can, but we're glad we had that right up front. We knew we were going to be full-time, so we wanted as much solar as possible, so we went and did that. One thing we're also really glad, even though Escape offers lithium batteries, we're actually really glad we started with 2 AGM 6-volt batteries. That's really given us a chance over the last 2 years to really see what our needs are and where we want to go from there. So 2 6-volt batteries, AGMs, have been actually worked pretty good for us, but we are ready to upgrade. So come the fall, we're going to hit up Battleborn and get a couple Battleborn batteries and probably upgrade our controller and our inverter. Well, guess how lucky we've been. We are actually, out of all of our friends we camped with, the only ones that have never had a mouse, knock on wood, in our trailer. One of the reasons why is we're super happy we got the power cord that disconnects, and not the type that you actually push in, because that just leaves a big old hole for those rodents to go in.
One of the other nice to have items that we went ahead and put on our Escape is the backup camera. And that funny little thing poking out of the back of the Escape is the backup camera. And you might say, well, do you really need a backup camera when you're backing up? And I would say, I have used it a couple times backing up when it was a very complex backup. But actually, I use it the most when I'm driving down the road and I just want to see who's behind me, what are they doing, and when we're carrying bikes back here, are they still on? Hey, and also, if I'm trailing a sewer hose, like I have actually seen people doing, where their sewer hose is flopping around behind their RV, I would see that too.
All right, well, we do a lot of cold weather camping, and so we are exceptionally glad we got the spray foam insulation. But wait, what about the tank heaters? Well, in all honesty, we've only used the tank heaters once, and that's when we had a power hookup. Tank heaters aren't great if you're boondocking or relying on other types of power like solar or generator. It's just going to wear your batteries down pretty darn fast. But we did use it once when it got super cold for like one night, and we had hookups and we were able to keep the water in our fresh tank and our gray tank from freezing up, because you don't want that to happen. Spray foam insulation, oh yeah, I mean, we actually really love having it. It keeps us extra warm when it's really cold out, and I think it keeps it a little cooler too when it's really hot out. So 2 big thumbs up on that for me. So one of the concerns a lot of people have with the spray foam insulation is if anything under there fails and you have to kind of scrape that spray foam away. And I'd say that's really not that big of a deal. You can buy cans of spray foam to replace it, and it's, you know, for me the benefit outweighs the cons of having it.
The great awning debate. Manual, which is what we got, or automatic. And I would say, once you've gone manual, you'll never go back. No, not really. But honestly, we have camped in just about every weather possible. Snow, hail, rain, sun. And every one of those situations, I'm glad I had a manual one. Why? Because even with the sun, I want to be able to slant it down to get a little more shade over here. I can do it with a manual. I can't do it with the automatic ones that come straight out. It might take a little more work to put out, but honestly, it's not that hard.
All right, this is standard. You have the GFCI outlet here. What an option was to have a couple of USB ports and a 12-volt port right here. We don't use it a lot, but we have used it a couple of times, so we're glad we have that. And the ZAMP port. So we sometimes have sometimes we'll hook up our 100-watt Renogy panel that we can move around, especially in places like Washington, where there's a lot of tree cover and the sun is just kind of filtering around sometimes. It's nice to be able to move that panel. So we put that into the ZAMP port and gives us that extra capability.
One of the things that we would probably do different if we had to do it over again would not have this range hood. Why? Because oftentimes I'm doing stuff over here on the counter, and this is like right in this area where I manage to hit my head. And as much as I try to learn not to hit my head in the RV, I find ways all the time to do it. But honestly, we hardly, I think in 2 years, we've had this range hood on maybe once or twice. It's just as easy to, one, have windows and a fan going, or two, we're cooking it outside if it's smelly. So really, why have this plus another hole in the RV when you don't really need it?
All right, another totally personal preference thing is the table. Now, when we got our Escape, we didn't have the option for a lagoon mount, and we put that in ourselves. We absolutely love it. It's so nice for the dogs to be able to have the space and for our feet below here, and that's been a huge plus. I think if we had gone with the lagoon mount from the very beginning, we probably also would have gone with a different shape of the table. So we may actually do something different here. For full timing, you know, it's kind of nice to use this more as a lounge instead of having this big, huge table. So make it a little bit more comfortable. And so I think I'm hoping maybe to go with a round table here eventually. It's kind of dark in here, isn't it? Well, we kind of like it that way. One thing we wish we would not have gotten was the window in here, and as a matter of fact, we didn't have that on our build sheets. Someone just got a little overzealous, and when we got our build pictures, hey, there was a window. And we thought we might come to love it, but and the extra light. The light is nice, but unfortunately the downside for us for this is that it's a single pane or as a non-thermal window. It's really hot or really cold in here. So depending on what the weather is outside, we've come in here when it's been 75, 80 in Arizona and pretty hot in here. We pretty much keep the Reflectix up here all the time. And then because we spent so much time in Alaska, it's also very, very cold in here. And a lot of that has to do with the window. So the Reflectix helps a lot. And if we need extra light, I guess we just take it right out.
what else would we do different on our build sheet? Well, the one thing that we really missed on this side of the RV is another outside shower. Not that we feel like we have to take showers out here, over there, and inside, but sometimes if you're cooking, it's really nice to be able to do dishes right here, or if there's something blocking the shower on that side, and we need to say, give the dogs a bath, it would be really nice to have an outside shower over here. And you know, sometimes it's just all about privacy. So if you're trying to use this and you don't really want to be using the shower over there in front of everybody else in the campsite, it's kind of nice to have the option to have one right over here. So it's quite possible that there is another outside shower in our future.
Our third question is if we have had any major repairs, and the answer is yes, unfortunately. And it was our front axle. When we were coming up from the Yukon, we hit a major pothole. It was just jaw jiggling, and we stopped and pulled over and take a look at it. Of course, we couldn't really tell anything, but we noticed some uneven tire wear, and we have a whole video on that. We'll put a link to that at the end of this video. But basically we got it repaired, but it took a while. Our last question is, were there any issues or minor little things we had right when we took delivery of our Escape? And there was just a couple of really minor things. One of them is we had a leak down here, and so we had some loose fittings. I had to go a couple times and try and loosen that up. The other one, which is very common, is the water pump. So sometimes when you're running the water and you turn it off, the pump is still running. It's a real simple adjustment screw, and Escape actually has a video on how to adjust that. The other thing was the screen door didn't quite latch. So I basically had to move the catch plate out just a little bit with a washer so that it would stay closed. Because otherwise you push it and it would just open right up. Well, hey, let us know if you have more questions. We're always happy to answer them and to give you our opinions. But you know, everybody has their own. So if you like this video, please give us a thumbs up, hit that like button, because you know, she's pretty likable and funny, and hit that subscribe button if you're getting some value out of this. We'll see you in the next video. We've been in our off-grid cabin. I'm saying good. Oh, Jesus. Blech.